Right, greetings everyone. This is Friday, November the 8th, ICU online meeting. We are recording for the benefit of all the other members, and we may or may not make it a bit more public after that. We will be discussing the Bitcoin alert system first of all, but various different points, and fielding questions and answers throughout, if anyone has any questions or answers. Any questions, rather. Right, the Bitcoin alert system, first of all, is used in a judicial sense. Let's go over it briefly. The Bitcoin alert system is a system which doesn't actually operate anymore in BTC. They discontinued it. They broke it or something in 2015, and they discontinued it in 2016. And I'm not actually absolutely certain if it's still in the current version of Bitcoin, which everyone refers to as BSV, of course, but it is a needed thing. And basically what it does is it sends out an alert system to all mining nodes, and this alert system can contain a message of anything. This can be shaped in a different way as a judicial international law order. Say, for example, if international courts met and there was big discussion, oh, we want to shut down this massive heroin dealer, there would have to be international collaboration and cooperation, not just the miners, but the international governments and law. They would have to discuss and agree whether in silence or not. I mean, it might be done in silence because such a thing as, everyone knows about Liberty Reserve, that was done in silence and then shut down. But what they would have to do is get enough countries with enough hash rate around the world to change the law, and then to get these miners to cooperate and the pools to cooperate, because it's not just mining facilities. Remember, there's will be pools out there, as there are currently is, and people would just move their mining power to other countries which don't have this law if they don't agree to the law. So basically, they will have to get a massive international agreement, and then they would be able to use something like the Bitcoin alert system, which it might be possible to modify it to use a kind of signatory system, similar to how multi-sig works. You could have international agreement where they all sign an agreement to a particular type of law, and after it's gone through the courts or whatever process, and then they will sign this alert system, and then that alert system goes out to all the miners saying this is a judicial order to stop processing transactions from this address. And it's similar to what currently happens. What currently happens with national countries, with, say, treasuries, is they send out financial orders, cease and desist, and also sanction orders. You're not allowed to trade with certain countries, not allowed to trade with certain businesses, and you're not allowed to trade with certain individuals, depending on your type of business, if you're a bank especially. And, this kind of international alert system can be used to tell miners, this is the law, this is what's happening. All these countries have signed to it. You can imagine it would be some kind of documentation form. Now that everyone gets the idea of like content on chain, you can imagine a documentation with a signed thing from all the countries, which has been automated in some kind of tokenized format on their fiat substitute. They've all signed their government key or whatever, and all the miners will be able to see this and see maybe the alert system won't trigger unless 60 out of 70 countries, I don't know how many countries there are in the world, so don't quote me on that number, but unless a super majority of the world countries sign this agreement, and then that triggers the alert system, then that goes out. There was some concern that this would be like a red nuke button, but it's not like that. It's a messaging system That's all it is, a messaging system. And then it's up to the miners to obey the law, to do those things, or to shut down their business and say, you know, they don't want to do it, or to move shop, you know, or like I said, if it's pool operators and just hash power, users might decide to move to different pools. So that is, you know, the basics of the Bitcoin alert system. It's a messaging system which reaches out to all the nodes and can contain more content and can even be a kind of triggering system if slightly adapted. It's not an integral, you know, part, but it is a very useful part for international law and for miners as well, you know, because I mean, unless, I don't know, you don't really have any morals, as a miner, you're probably going to go along with most heinous crimes, because the cost of organization of doing something like this, because this won't happen like just haphazardly. Some people seem to also think, oh no, they're going to freeze my grandma's funds. I just put £100, my grandma's in risk. And it's like, no, that's just silly. Okay, because organizing things on an international level, let alone a national level, costs a lot of money. Spying on address, watching addresses, figuring all this stuff out. It's got to be cost effective. Okay, it has a time cost analysis for governments and specialists. They need to, you know, it has to be worth doing, basically. And they're not going to do it for your grandma, and they're not going to do it for you, unless you are a massive drug kingpin or human trafficker type of person. And, you know, and if you are one of those type of people, they're already trying to track you anyway. This just makes things a little bit easier. So, it can also, you know, it's not going to be useful for everyday people, because it's just expensive to collaborate and organize and then to set in motion. And if you imagine, if there's a bar, if you do it for people who have in the range of monetary value, say £1,000, and then that's a very low bar, and it's going to cost governments the world over a ton of money and to kind of seize money at that low level. There's what was brought up was about Greece as well, and that's like was a concern of mine. And when it happened, what happened with Greece, I'll just briefly go over it with everyone. Some years ago, the national banks there, because of debts to Europe and whatnot, the national banks there froze a ton of accounts and basically took a lot of money from people and said, right, we're going to pay you back this money eventually, very slowly or something. I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm slightly wrong on that. But basically, they just froze people's accounts without warning, a super majority of accounts, funds. And people are concerned, oh no, might that happen? And it's like, no, again, the Bitcoin alert system is just a messaging system, but don't have control over a person's keys. If, however, that said, if banks are offering custodial wallets in the future, and then those banks probably will have control over whoever deposits funds into their accounts. Okay, so just because it's Bitcoin doesn't mean it's magical anti-government stuff. People need to get that stuff out of their head. Yeah, Cyprus, not Greece. Sorry, correction there. It was no, it was Greece. It wasn't just Cyprus, wasn't it? Greece had the whole bailout. Anyway, we'll get back to that. All right. Oh, okay. You live in Cyprus. Fair enough. Right. Anyway, I've lost my point now. Someone remind me. Right. Okay. Just to say correction, Greece had a limit on the amount you could withdraw. Cyprus took funds. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, you see, the way I see Greece is the limit you can withdraw in a way, and underneath the table, they're using that funds that you cannot withdraw. It's just a alternative method to take funds from people. If you can't actually withdraw all the funds, it's like, what are they actually doing with it then? And it's like, oh, they're paying off debtors, possibly, just saying, possibly, and you know, this is very allegedly, just my own personal thoughts. it brings into question what they're doing with those funds. Anyway, yeah, I was saying about the seizing. That's what we were saying about seizing funds and whatnot. The alert system is just a messaging system. If you have banks with custodial wallets, and then you're probably using those banks, you're probably signing contracts anyway, terms of service. And in those terms of service, it's going to say something along those lines, you giving your money to the banks. And that is still a business model that banks will have custodial wallets. And as someone else said to me, yeah, solution to that is not deposit your money into banks, but banks are still going to provide services which are more than just depositing. You know, it's safer for people in the know-how to hold their own money, but there's still plenty of people in the world who are not capable, are not physically or mentally capable of holding their own funds, or don't have the expertise. Or they just prefer that a bank has insurance, because banks have types of insurance. So if things go wrong, it's not their own mistake. And if you, right, okay, just to explain that one briefly, banks have in England, in the UK, have up to 75,000 insurance. If you have a lot of money, you deposit 75,000 in various different banks, then basically all your money is insured. Instead of just depositing 300,000 in one bank, you spread it out. That's how you insure all your money if you have a lot of money. If you have millions, and then, yeah, it's a different ball of kettle, but I won't get into that. So I'm just reading chat. Yeah. Well, I'll read it out what Richard said. Richard said, thing is, you can split custodianship 3 ways between a bank, a certificate authority, and a user. So Craig detailed this in one of his old blog posts. It's not a binary thing, custodial or non-custodial. Yeah, that's quite true. Anyway, going on to the banking, the similarities in what happened with Greece. Yeah, in the future, if depending on where you deposit your funds and stuff, similar things can happen again. And this, but then there's going to be more business models, one might imagine, similar to Money Button, where they give you control of your funds. So you might be using their wallet per se, but then if anything happens and their site goes down or they try to do anything, you might be able to try and restore your keys on another service. Things like that will more likely appear. But people will still need to be careful where they deposit funds, because, you know, as the story of many exchanges will tell you, if you deposit in an exchange and you're using their wallets and their cold services, if they get hacked or lose the password to their cold wallet, or someone, the CEO dies, which has happened a few times, I think, over the last 10 years, and then goodbye your funds. You know, this is also, to bring up what Richard said, it's very important as well to help if a business has different types of custodial types wallets where they share the key sharing. Craig's been talking about some of this stuff, like Richard said. So you could have management who, you know, you'll have key sharing. So if someone dies or runs away, the rest of the partnership and management can still access the funds and continue the business and do whatever needs to be done. So we're very close to being there, very close indeed. Right, yeah. So saying about the Bitcoin alert system and the Greece deposits and such. Basically, it's not a perfect system, because people are still going to have to do their due diligence, and it's still going to depend where they deposit their funds. But it will be a better system, because people will be able to retain control of their own funds. And as Craig says, don't deposit more than 100 Bitcoins in one wallet. Most people won't have that much. Most people can spread their funds around at home and deposit some in a bank to use whatever services. It will just be safer. It's not going to be 100% perfect, but it will be safer. So situations like Greece and Cyprus, if anything like that happened again, it would have much less of an effect on people. And as I was saying, like a situation like that, the purpose for it is to get funding, to get money, because for whatever reason, the country's run itself into debt. If they, in a Bitcoin and MetaNet world, if most of the people don't have their funds in banks, because that's the only place where, you know, everyone's got to have their money for their jobs and paying bills and everything, and then it's going to become less an appealing a target to actually do that in the first place, because the people in power will go, oh, you know, we need a large amount of funds, we've run our country into the ground again. Because remember, Bitcoin and MetaNet will not magically make countries better. It's going to take time, and countries will still run themselves into the ground. But if they try looking at banks in the similar Greece method and go, let's do that again, and seize a lot of funds because that worked last time, and they see, oh, actually people's got money spread all over the place now, we're not going to be able to seize as much funds, they will go, okay, let's come up with other alternatives. What's a better method to get to the funds? And assuming they don't think up of a worse method, it's hopeful that they will think of a better method and will realize that they can't just grab people's funds, and then they've got to work harder at it and play fairer and more honest. So yes, it's not going to absolutely, the too long didn't read is, it's not going to absolutely fix countries, but it will make those situations far less appealing and far less likely. International law, I'm going to bring up Ben. Any questions? Just type questions or speak. Right, okay, I'll go on to international law. International law then, as I was saying before, used in conjunction with the Bitcoin alert system, can be used to alert all the miners and get them on the same page. In an emergency like that. In most cases, one might imagine and one might debate that this would all be very public beforehand. It would be very public that governments are trying to push for a specific type of law that miners might want to have to obey, you know, or might change something or other. And it would be very public, and then eventually the Bitcoin alert system might be used as a kind of signatory way to say, yes, all these specific countries have agreed. You know, like what's it called? Like how when they do voting in the UN and stuff, you know, it's kind of like you could think of it as maybe a MetaNet UN voting system, the Bitcoin alert system, just metaphorically speaking. In conjunction with international law, it becomes a powerful tool, seeing as, you know, there's global trade, economic laws, global trade laws and such. It becomes a very powerful tool indeed. I was going to briefly discuss different types of crime. Court isn't here though, is he? So I'm not going to bother. I'll go over that one at a different time. And which brings me on to miner ID, which I will briefly go over. Unless anyone has any questions beforehand on miner ID, I will go right into it. I'm only going to be doing it like an LE5 cursory thing. Don't ask me for technical details. Right, no? Okay, I'll go over it then. So miner ID is like how, well, wait, actually, one second. Oh, you probably heard that. Right, sorry about that. Right, miner ID. It's like miners make a call out to each other, basically. On the node layer, miners can make a call out to each other using like peer-to-peer tech and IP. And when they make a call out to each other, they basically say to each other, hey, I'm a miner, you know, connect to me. And by miners calling out to each other and connecting more directly to each other, they can just ignore all the crappy Sybil stuff, all the non-mining nodes, which just are annoying. When miners connect directly like that, calling out to each other, when they get blocks and they propagate blocks, it will go straight to them, and it's going to be more appealing to miners. You know, if you're trying to remember, there's two races: the hash, and the second is to propagate the blocks. And when you're connected all to miners with miner ID, then it's going to make you really densely interconnected, and you'll be a happy miner. It's profit. If you're thinking profit as a miner, you don't want to lose those second races. There's no reason not to have it. And if you're within the law and everything, you're a miner. As Craig said many times, it all leads to companies, right? Because they make profit better. They use efficiency and people and mass manufacture much better and much efficiently. And so it comes down to big companies and such who are quite happy to work. Well, they have to work in the law because they have to be legally established. And so these legally law-abiding entities tend to not mind having stuff like miner ID and having an alert system, because an alert system is kind of last point of call as well. So miner ID in conjunction with these other things as well lets law and miners work together like brilliantly, even better. I mean, I can imagine a situation where no one publicly knows, and then the Bitcoin alert system goes out in the cases of we've been doing like big research, undercover research on the big heroin and drug overlords and such, and we found their addresses. Can you please shut this address down, or something like that? But it is a real big one to do, like, to get the international law. It can be done. Like Liberty Reserve got shut down, but tough luck to the big drug pins, really. Bitcoin wasn't made for them. We're going to have to get it sooner or later. Right, yeah, so an extension to miner ID is like the merchant stuff, merchant layer, which I didn't mention in that, but merchant APIs and such, which will be able to connect to miners. When you have miner IDs, the merchants will be able to connect to them, and you will be able to process like a lot lower transaction fees, and the service for end users will speed up. I think everyone will be quite happy along those lines when that all happens. It's kind of like, just imagine it as a big network topology thing, which is all coming together. Users, merchants, miners, and all the magic on the MetaNet, all the content on the MetaNet. Paymail is extremely important. If you're not already into Paymail, you should get into Paymail and figure out how you can Paymail plus money button, how it can be used all together. Yeah, there's a lot more stuff that can be done. Have a look at Baymail, the way the decryption and encryption stuff works. Brilliant. And yeah, when merchant APIs come online with miner ID, you're going to be getting the messaging system, which is already kind of, look at Baymail, like I said, being worked on. There was something else, Kensato, I think it was Kensato or Kensido. He interviewed some guys who had made an on-chain email system. I'm not sure how theirs is working, but I think it was all just contained in op return. So I'm a bit, but Baymail, whereas uses various different things to get where it's going. Right. And which will be using other things as well. I'm going to get on to, no, we're going to go on to evolution of law, because that is quite a large topic. Any questions so far? Anyone? Just me talking, really? Yeah. Okay. Oh, there's going to be a nice Craig and Jimmy thing later live stream. Did you check Slack? Oops. Right. I think I might end this soon, Ben. I'm going to just go into, yeah, but evolution of law. Okay, just to briefly go on about that, Ben. which I will go on about more at a later time. Basically, how law evolves and how civilizations establish law. In the past, there were lawmakers. They were just simply called who established harsh laws, and eventually it's evolved and such. And nowadays, we have judges, magistrates, and all this other stuff. But it's still down to humans. Depending on your type of culture and society at the time, like in the past, sacrificing and stuff was a lawful thing to do in South America. Nowadays, that's quite heavily frowned upon. Who knows what's going to be like again in 500 years' time? Hopefully not bad. But the direction tends to be of law evolving and law getting better and better. And in fact, the systems getting fairer and fairer. For people. Obviously, there's always going to be people who are against it, because there's always going to be people who just want their own self-interest. And ultimately, one's self-interest is a lot of people is to disobey various laws. A lot of people disobey various laws. But as a whole, as a society, laws have evolved and have helped civilizations grow, and has helped legit people prosper. But as I'm sure many would agree, there are some laws which are wrong or can be better. And on the layer of Bitcoin MetaNet, it's that a lot of things can be automated and clearly seen. So a lot of the things which are fuzzy in the eyes of the law will be able to just be automated, and there'd be no argument about it. And this will make some of the costs of law a lot cheaper for a lot of people, rather than having to go through a process of courts. Oh, I've got to write court documents. Oh, I've got to go to court. Oh, I've got to go. What a headache. And it's very stressful for a lot of people. I used to go work in courts, and I used to go there a lot just for fun, but I could see how it's stressful for other people. When it's all automated and stuff, and you've signed agreements and stuff, and then someone breaks it, and then the result is just like submit one thing or even a key online, or he just hasn't your opposite person just hasn't activated a key at a certain time, so the contract automatically results in your favor without you needing to do anything. That will make cost of litigation a lot easier, and it will be make it a lot more appealing for people to work together, because if say like there's 20 of us all gathered in, and I say, or 10 of us, and I say to you all, look, I've got this line of business plans which I have, and I want to get you all in, but we can do it in such a way using MetaNet in such a way we all sign with our money button, we all put in a certain amount of money, and if it's not upheld, whatever the deposit, refund, or whatever's happening isn't withheld, and then you'll get back the money automatically. And then it becomes a lot more likely that people go, actually, you know what? Yeah, I know if he messes up, and then I get reciprocation, there's no problem. It's a lot more appealing. And when you can do that on a global market, it makes it really appealing, especially when you can do it with microtransactions on the global market, because one of the problems is the cost of forex fees. In that, say if you're trying to get massive collaboration, your bottom floor is the minimum forex fees is like 50 quid plus whatever fees it is for the people to get verified, which is obviously going to be more than 50 quid. So for your potential investor, they already have to put in X amount of money to get interested in your product. They might see an advertisement, but then they've got to pay the forex fees, they've got to pay the registration fees, they've got to do this and that and blah, blah, blah. Because a lot of it is because forex fees and exchange fees, and they add on security fees on top of that, banks do. So when you can massively undercut all of that, because one, paymail and identity, as Ryan's been going on about, listen to his videos, really listen to his videos, paymail and the identity and such that brings, the security of the Bitcoin and MetaNet, the Bitcoin structure, the security that brings, and the microtransactions which bring inclusion globally, which allows a hell of a lot more people on like the lower level to get involved in your project. And when, even if your project, there's a risk averse system, right? Even when your project fails, if someone's only put in 10p, it's a lot less of a loss to them. Say if they had to put in a minimum of 50 quid or 10 quid even, you know, is if they put in 10p into various projects and half of them fail, but half succeed, then they're probably going to profit. But if they had to do it at 50 quid each or 10 quid each, and they've only got like £100 and that's all their money, it's likely they're not ever going to invest in the first place, you know, let alone making lots of profit. Right, yeah, anyway, I've babbled on about this one a bit much. I think I'm going to end it here, 10-2, unless there's any questions. No? Right, okay, I'm going to just stop recording.